did another video on this, and then battery went, even though I'd not run out of memory. So anyway, I ended up talking about on another subject anyway, to do with Stop ULEZ and the corruption of the government. Because this guy is actually probably, this guy is probably closer to what BentCop.biz is really about than Stop ULEZ. I mean, Stop ULEZ is about cameras, sort of, and surveillance, but they're not exactly Big Brother watch, although the thing with Stop ULEZ is they seem to not want to annoy the police, but it's not about annoying the police. They don't seem to think that the police have done anything wrong. And we know that there's a lot of police who help people and do good things, but there's also equally a lot of corruption and breaking of the law by the police and corrupt and illegal practices as well. Plus, they're just wanting a surveillance state, and they're behind the government making practically common, normal things illegal. You can't say this, you can't look at that. Chinese social point system is the way it's going. So, and now they're behind the Tory party, and that's what the other video ended up being about, blackmail and corruption in the voting, when there's all they collected all these signatures, 200,000 signatures, as if it's nothing, and now they want everyone to vote for Sue Hall to do something that they've already gone above and beyond what anyone could ever do, above and beyond what anyone would be required to do. Anyone in their life, dream of collecting 200,000 signatures. To do it in 6 months, you need 1 a minute for 6 months solid, right? And that's with sleeping in between. So, and then they're wanting everyone to turn up on election day and cast their vote for Sue Hall, so she's got all these votes, so she can get into a position that they've already collected the signatures for the House of Commons, and they're already entitled to a referendum. And Sunak claims that he's opposed to ULEZ, so the election shouldn't be about ULEZ. If Sunak wants to, stop ULEZ, then, why haven't they had used those petition signatures for doing it through Parliament for a resolution? You can't blackmail people to force them to vote for you in an election in order to get a political action that you've already gone above and beyond getting through petitions. But anyway, try and cut to the point. So this guy, I really wanted to mention this to Verbs, because this guy has been on the programme multiple times. And he's actually been arrested a few times for trying to arrest judges, which I think is just amazing. And if you believe him, and apparently there's a lot of people in his campaign group, they all believe that they're right and correct, and these judges are corrupt and breaking the law. There's meant to actually be, some people say that judges have got immunity, but for corrupt and illegal practices, they can't actually be prosecuted, and they can't use privilege. So they cannot, I think they just lose the job and position, though, or got taken off the register. I'm not sure if they go to prison or not. But I know for a start, they can get removed from position, and they still actually go through the prosecution process, according to that Corrupt and Legal Practices Act, from what I've read anyway, unless I read it wrong, but I don't think I have. So I'll try and get to the main point of what I wanted to respond to from this Verbs video, because I borrowed some of the video because it was so good, so brilliant, this guy's statement. I just think it's amazing. Now, what they're saying, I've just realised something, right? This is like a realisation, and that is that this guy's going on about them renting courts out and hiring out courts, right? Renting them for council purposes or hiring them out, hiring the court out. Now, he thinks that there's a lot of corruption going on with the judges, like the judges are biased and they're not impartial. Now, I think that there might be just a slight tweak or a slight bit of insight that this guy could benefit from, or might have overlooked or didn't know, that I could possibly help them with. Although, he's been doing a lot of complaints, and he doesn't seem to be making any more progress at the moment, although he's got a massive following behind him, clearly. So I want to say this, and again, I'm like on 5 minutes 14 seconds to get to it, but I don't want to start a new video. I'll just say it now. So, look, in the law, through, I think it's the Justices of the Peace Acts and the Courts Acts and several other acts, right? There's definitely a legal principle I've read recently, right, which is still in effect, and that is that no member of a council, particularly like the councillors or the chair, because they used to be justices of the peace and so forth, and I think that really the chair of the council is a justice of the peace, but only for the council chamber business, if you know what I mean, for making orders, because council have to make orders, right, like a judge, but not for a criminal case or civil case, for the council, right? So they make orders as a chair, right, when the councillors vote on it, with powers, right? So they're a justice of the peace, a judicial position, like more like an MP or the ministers, you know. Obviously, you know, it's got the authority of the council chamber with the mace in there, but, you know, all judges act with the authority of the king anyway. So, but when it comes to this, councils enforce, when, so, no, the law basically is, right, that no one is allowed to be, no one from the council is allowed to be a member of a court, right? Nobody from the council is allowed to be a member of a court, right? Now, so where does that come in with what this guy was talking about with his stories and evidence? Well, he says that the councils are hiring out the courtroom, but hiring out the court. Now, I'm pretty sure, I think that this could help this guy with his campaigns, with this information, if you check up on it. This is like a bit of a legal technicality. This is what we need to look. I think that it's worth him checking this up, right? So when you go into a court, the court has staff, right? It's got cleaner. You know, like when, actually, you know, Andrew Bridgen MP. When Andrew Bridgen MP, you know, I've actually used it I've made like a musical parody out of it for the petition campaign. He's like the cooks, the cleaners, you know, the staff of Parliament. You know, there's all these normal people in Parliament as well, besides the MPs, you know, the ministers and so forth. You know, he refers to the staff of Parliament, right? Well, the clerks, well, you know, even someone who opens a door for you. So, and then he's talking about, now this guy was talking about the security guards. He said that the security guards weren't employed by the court, they were contracted out. Says that the security guards in the court that arrested him actually weren't working for the court, they were rented out. So maybe he does know this, but I don't think he mentioned it in this program. Now, if the council are not just, you know, listing a case with the court, like as anyone else would, you know, listing a case with the court, if they're doing it in this weird and different manner where it's not listed with normal listings and proceedings, they're actually saying, oh, we're going to rent the court out for ourselves. If the council are renting a court out, hiring it, then aren't they renting it for themselves? If they're paying for it, it becomes the council's, doesn't it? You know, and the thing is, even if it's just, you know, even if it's regarded as booking it, have they paid money, or are they just, when they book it, because this is the thing. How is it being done? And my point is that if you can find some way that the council, rather than you or me or a private police officer, with an affidavit, or someone, with any other, you people can get cases listed at courts, but just a normal listing, right? If this process of how they've been referring to it as renting or hiring out the court, if that comes with, if the judge is not allowed to be a member of the council, right? The judge cannot be a member of the council. He's not allowed. But regardless of who the judge is, not being a member of the council, right? If this renting out of the court room facilities, they're hiring it, if you can find out that if they really are actually hiring it, it's not just some sort of special booking, but it's not put on the main board like they're saying on the main listings. If they actually really are hiring the room out, right? If the council are actually, if they get with that hiring of the room, if they get service, like if this I'm not suggesting that the judge is a member of the council. If this judge does not work for the council, but if the council have hired the room out, right, does that service, right, with the clerks, if the clerk comes into the room, right, have they paid, have the council hired it with service? So that what I'm trying to say, if the council have made any kind of payment of hiring a court out, which includes clerks and things like that, delivering, coming and going, taking paperwork, then effectively they're under contract to a council, right? Because they've been hired. So if the council, if it calculates, right, that the council actually have hired the courtroom, it says that no member of a court can be under council employment, right? Can't be on the council. Now, if they hire the room out and it comes with service of like clerks included as well, the clerks being contracted out with the room to the council. And that means that they're under payment and employment of the council, not of the courts anymore. If they've had to hire it out, not just like you or me listing it, as listing a case and paying your court fees. If they've hired it out, I think you might have them on that, because it says that no member of the court can be employed by the council. I'm pretty sure there might be some technicalities in there, but it's beyond which you need black belt barrister for, or someone like that. But I'm pretty sure that because it depends how they're describing it. When he says, "Oh, they rented the court out," he might, the truth of it might be that they've just, booked the court under what everyone else normally does, but they've just got it. They wanted it, it's not being put on the main listings of normal cases because it's like one of these different types of case. It definitely seems they're being very elusive about how they're doing it. If they really, like, if you hire a party room out, right? Put it this way: if there's a sports centre and you rent the room out of the sports centre, right, and you're paying for it, And if that comes with service, you know, like if you rent a room out for a party and you get service included, you know, like someone makes some food and you get, you know, you've got people opening and closing the doors and things like that, then those people, you've hired them out to work for you. That's for sure. Now, I know they're not allowed by law to have a judge who is employed by the council. He can't. So, you know, it's very odd when they're renting these rooms out, you know. Now, if they were renting the room out in the court, and if they were blatantly sending someone who was a justice of the peace, but they sort of either somehow or other work for the council, then that is definitely illegal. But it says any member of a court, no member of the court at all, can work for the council. And that extends to the clerks and even the cleaners. I actually think that, you know, an employee of the court, really. So I really think it's worth exploring not just the security guards. You see, the security guards are meant to be private. You see, what he said, that those security guards aren't actually working for the court directly. They're contracted out through another company, right? And he said that that's meant to be illegal. But what would you say if those security guards were actually under employment from the council, for example, right? And then they were working in the court when they rented it out, but they were the council's security guards working in the court on that day. That definitely would be illegal. Now, the thing is, if you've got a contracting company that has got security guards, and on one day they might be working in the court and another day they might be working for the council, then that person is under employment of the court and the council, surely. I think I would look at the clerk if I were you, because the clerk, if you rent out a court and you really are renting it out, it's not just another way of saying that, you know, they've listed it in a, you know, you've booked, you know, it's a normal booking like everyone else, but it's just treated as differently. If they really have rented the room out, and as part of that rental, for example, well, who serves the judge? How does the judge, they say they rent a room out, but where's the judge coming from? You know, they rented the court out, you know, I don't think that you can, if the council are paying for the court and the room and they've rented it, they're actually paying for everything that's inclusive with that, you know. When the clerk walks in, he's on rent. If the clerk's on rent from the council, it doesn't matter whether the judge is employed by the council or not. But if they rented the room out, how are they getting a judge? How can you rent a courtroom out and not be renting the judge out at the same time? You're renting the whole thing. But, you know, if you're renting, the judge, surely, there definitely is something not right about this. Because when he first told me it, I was thinking like, all right, the judge himself, okay, he's not like, you know, one of the counsellors or one of their friends or pals. Well, it might be one of their friends or pals, but, you know, it can't be someone who, you know, it just happens that one of the executives or someone happens to be a justice of the peace as another job, you know. I was thinking more like, you know, let's say, you know, one of the counsellors or one of the executives in the council, you know, works in the parks department, you know, likes law, and he got inducted as a justice of the peace, and that's his other job. He's not allowed to, you know, therefore he's got a job in the council on one day, and on other days that he might, you know, be a justice of the peace. I was thinking more along those lines, but even as a justice of the peace who works for that court, if they rent the room out, how is it how you're, if the council are actually renting out the judge with the court, you get the court and the judge. You know, it doesn't seem right to me. A court's a court. A court is a court. It is its own entity, right? So you know, if you've got a case, then you apply through the normal manner, you know. But what is this renting a court manner about? Who rents a court out? And when you're renting it, what does that mean? You're using it for your own purposes, well, like private purposes. And if you're renting it out, and if that renting, in the money that you hand over, that you're hiring it out for yourself, brings the justice of the peace under your employment because you're paying him for him, then surely he's become employed by the council through a contract, surely. But regardless of that anyway, even if you're renting the room out, it says no member of the court. I can't see how you can get a clerk service included in renting the room out, and the clerk not be considered as being employed by the council or hired out. If a council has rented out a room that comes with service, and for those purposes they have rented the room, the council are paying for the room, and you know, the clerk is under contract to the council, is working for the council. So that's illegal. And that's what you need to be looking at for the key for it. The security guards is sort of similar, but the security guards are working for a security company. If you could find out that the security guards have got a contract with the council, and some of them have been working in the council and the court, then you also want something with that as well. That could be explored, but I wanted to say that you need looking into a bit further. But I definitely know that no member of a court can be allowed to be working for the council. And if they're being hired out by the council, how are they not working for them? Because you bought the room and the people who serve in there, you know, regardless of who the judge is. I was probably thinking that, you know, some of these judges have got to be like best pals, you know, probably dining buddies with the councillors, which, you know, I think in one of the stories this guy said, he said that, one of the judges recognised him, and he said, I can't proceed because I know him. But, you know, if they know the council, they can't proceed. Really, wouldn't that be this, you know, if the council had rented out a court and they knew one of the justices who was hearing the case, then wouldn't that be similar or the same as if, you know, the judge walked in and, you know, I know him, you know, it's one of my friends. It's not the same. You know, that's the defendant, you know. He knows the defendant or the respondent, but what happens if he equally knows the plaintiff? If the council are the claimant, right? If the council are the claimant, equally, when he said that, you know, he walked into the court, this was one of the other guests actually on Verbs, not this guy, one of the other guests, he came in and he said, the judge says, I knew the judge, I know that guy. And the judge said, I can't continue, I know this guy, right? Now that's the respondent, that's the defendant respondent. If equally, on equal level and terms, the judge knows to an equal extent or capacity the claimant, which is anyone on the council who's putting the claim in, then surely it would be the same, wouldn't it? It would be like, we can't proceed because we know the claimant, not we know the defendant. You know, we know the plaintiff. I know the plaintiff. He's my friend on the council. That is what I now actually, you don't even have to be buying the judge or paying for him, I think. I think you will find, if you look, I think this guy is, obviously, he's been investigating it for a long, long time, and he's been getting, you know, he's been getting his teeth into it with all these arrests and so forth. I think that if you could, this is why, you know, if you had millions and millions, you could get private investigators to find out, you know, who knows who, and relationships between the councillors and the judges, you know, having turning up at football matches, getting football tickets given and gifts and so forth. You're not allowed to receive gifts in kind on the justices aren't allowed to receive gifts or reward, which is quite interesting when you're renting a courtroom out and paying for it, not just the normal service that they provide everyone else, does the clerk get a tip? Is the clerk getting a tip? Or whatever, getting a pay rise or something if they rent it out? I think that if they're renting that room out and it is actually classified as they have rented it for themselves and nobody else, right? It's being hired, and if it comes inclusive of a clerk, who you can't have a courtroom operating or functioning without a clerk, I think that clerk is regarded as under employment of the council for when the room has been rented out, and therefore it makes the proceedings illegal. That's what I think. And I also think that likely some of these judges do probably know some members of the council, at least to an extent, or to the same amount of knowing them as that guy who walked in when the judge said, "Oh, I know him, I can't proceed." So a judge cannot know that's really ridiculous, because I think a lot of police officers know judges, and a lot of police chiefs know judges, who submit cases. But there's definitely a law that says you can't be under employment on the council. Probably hard for them not to know them. But that's the thing. I mean, it's not a town where no one knows each other. But what would happen? I've kind of explored this before. What happens if it seems ridiculous? Like, the further and further back in time you go, the less and less people there are. So if you're in like a village or a town, right, everyone knows each other, like in, Amish, cultures, or, what you call them. What happens with those, or not Jewish people, what are those people called, who build houses for each other in America, Abraham Lincoln style looking people? Forgot what they're called now. What's the name for them? Well, it's kind of a little bit like Amish people, but, everyone knows each other. If you actually do know everyone, then how can you even end up being in front of a court? If a judge can't try a hearing if he knows the defendant, then what happens if he knows everyone? What happens if everyone knows each other? Who's going to do it? That is ridiculous, because it could happen. You could have that situation. It's possible. No one can stop you befriend, the Maya Smiley with his befriending society or whatever. You could have that situation. You could get to know judges if you wanted to. You could start hanging around with judges and get to know them, and go out of your way so you know all the judges and you're on circuit. And then what's going to happen then? If you wanted to, you could start going to the same squash club as them or the same cricket club and get talking to them and befriend them. And you could, if there's about 6 or 7 judges on one circuit or a commission, you could get to know them all. And then what happens when the police come and arrest you and take you into the court? So I know him, or get another judge, or I know him as well, get another judge, or I know him as well. What would they do? Have to make you wait and get a new one in from another circuit? But they're given a commission of the peace, aren't they? They've got a commission of the peace for one circuit. They've got to be inducted to be. You have to be, when you're sworn in as a judge. I didn't know this until recently. You're only actually appointed a judge with powers for a certain area, right? So they'd have to swear someone else in just to hear your case, wouldn't they? They'd have to swear in another judge just to hear your case. That would be interesting. It's not impossible for sure. So yeah, these people need to look into the clerk, because I know for certain that you're not allowed to have any member of a court staff cannot work for the council. So that's interesting. And the security guards, see what their other jobs are if they're doing any work for the council as well. And possibly if the justices know anyone on the council, at least to a certain extent, where they are actually known friends of them, to hang around with them, because I don't think that they'll be able to, on an equal capacity to not being able to hear it because of the defendant, they shouldn't be able to hear it because of the applicant, surely. Um, you know,